Clean and Well-Lit Place by Ernest Hemingway, which will be reported by Abellar, Cabusay, Castillo, Dela Cruz, Esguerra, and Esquillo. In this report, we will tackle the setting, the character, the mood, the conflict, the resolution, and the theme of the story, A Clean and Well-Lit Place by Ernest Hemingway.
Now let's talk about short story setting. So before we discuss the short story setting of A Clean and Well-Lit Place by Ernest Hemingway, let us first define what is short story setting. So the definition of a setting is
The setting of a piece of literature is the time and place in which the story takes place.
so this can be very specific or it can be very broad. If you're talking about it being specific, it can be a specific time, a specific location, or it can also be something broad or very descriptive, like at the park or by the kitchen table. So the unique characteristics of a short story setting is that it usually only takes up at one place. Since short stories are not as long as novels, it would just usually centralize on one place. So why is short story setting important? So the setting in the story usually provides the backdrop or the background of the characters. It also sets the mood of the story. So it can also convey meanings through the plot and through the characters. So to create the setting, you must provide the date and the time. This doesn't have to be so specific, but in providing the date and the time, the setting of the story will be more descriptive and more imaginary. And when the audience sees descriptive words, they could vividly imagine the place. So with that, you must also use descriptive language. In using descriptive language, it will evoke vivid sights, smell, taste, and other sensations to describe the short story. In identifying the setting of the story, you can also ask these questions. You can also ask, where is it located? When is it located? What specific details make the setting vivid?
In the story, A Clean and Well-Lit Place, this is the specific setting of the story. So where is it located? It is located in a bar cafe. When was it located? Past midnight from 1 to 2 a.m. Details that make the story or the setting of the story vivid. So these are lines from the short story that specifically describe the setting of the story. As the author uses these lines, you can specifically imagine the setting of the story. He used clear and vivid adjectives to describe where the story is located.
So moving on, let's talk about the characters in A Clean, Well-Lighted Place. First, to define a character refers to a person in a work of fiction and its characteristics. In relation to the character, characterization is the process that the author does in order to make the character seem real to the reader. This is an important driving force for the story because we have to feel that the characters will do something interesting, so it will make the tale worth telling. Part of the reason a story is interesting is who it's happening to. When we feel a character is real, the plot events matter more. So let's move on to the three main characters of the story. The first being the old man, the second being the older waiter, and the third being the younger waiter. So the old man is an elderly deaf man who spends his nights at the pleasant cafe at which the two waiters work. So in the story, when the old man speaks, it is only when he asks for more brandy from the young waiter. Otherwise, he drinks for the purpose of getting drunk. Also, as the old waiter notes, the old man doesn't get drunk in a wild or undignified manner. Despite all of that, the old man is somewhat of a mystery to us. Hemingway presents him as a representative of all people nearing the end of life, weary and hopeless, but still dignified. So moving on, let's talk about the old waiter. Hemingway depicts the old waiter as kind, dignified, and wise. The old waiter understands the importance of small pleasures. That's why he is sympathetic to the old man. Compared to the younger waiter, the older waiter is unrushed. He recognizes the fact that lingering inside the cafe is a pleasure. The older waiter is shown to be empathetic since he carefully considers what led the old man to attempt suicide the week before. The older waiter is the one that reveals the story's philosophical backbone to us, which is that the best thing you can do is to find a clean, well-lighted place to pass the time, because life is simply nothing otherwise. The older waiter believes that there is nothing out there and that our lives have no greater purpose. And the last character would be the young waiter. The young waiter can be considered as the antagonist of this story, since his views oppose to the old waiter and the old man. The young waiter appears to be brash towards the old man because all he cares about is getting home to his wife. The younger waiter thinks that his time is more valuable as compared to the old man and the older waiter because he spends it on things that matter. Hence, compared to the two older men, he thinks that life is still full of value. To him, old age is pathetic, an attitude reflected in his condescending behavior towards the old man. The young waiter thinks he's invincible, and that the universal problems of old age and death can't touch him. However, while he is still young and confident now, the implication is that once he hits a certain age and feels like life is slipping away from him, he'll be just like the older waiter and the old man.
Mood is the feeling a reader gets when reading the story. Mood is important because it gives emotional responses in readers. Now, what is the mood that clean, well-lighted place gives? So the mood in A Clean, Well-Lighted Place by Ernest Hemingway is frightening. He creates a scary mood through foreshadowing and suspense throughout the story. The story gets a scary feeling when the two waiters talk about the man in the bar who tried to commit suicide last week. In addition, do you know that Hemingway is known for using dark and scary moods in most of his books and stories?
Next is conflict. Conflict is the primary struggle between two characters or things in a short story. This can be between the main character or another character, a group, a force, or even against himself or herself. The conflict also what makes the story exciting. All conflicts can be categorized as whether as internal or external. In this story, there was a man versus man conflict, which is categorized as an external conflict. This was seen between the young waiter and the old man. The man versus man conflict in the story is the young waiter's impatience when the old man took a long period of time drinking. For the young waiter, it was already a long wait and had been wanting for the old man to leave. Also, the young waiter doesn't see the significance for him to stay, for he seemingly has everything: a job, a wife waiting for him, and he also says that an hour means more to him than it does for the old man. The conflict escalates to the point wherein the young waiter tells the old man that he should have died last week. Another man versus man conflict was seen between the old and young waiter. This conflict was established when the old waiter mentioned to the young waiter that they are two different kinds. With these two characters, it was noticed that the young waiter was a bit selfish, for he was basically in a hurry, while the old waiter became more selfless, for he preferred to stay at the cafe in case someone needs it. For instance, the old man. Moving on, there was also a man versus self type of conflict. There was a struggle between the old man and himself, and the old waiter and himself. In the story, the old man frequently visits the cafe or is a regular customer of the cafe. He commonly asks for drinks to help himself forget about the loneliness and sadness he endures. This was logical given that he recently tried to commit suicide. On the other side, the old waiter can perhaps perceive or understand what the old man is going through, for he sees himself the same way or feels the same way.
Resolution, known as the denouement, which comes from the French term "denou", meaning to untie. The resolution means the unfolding or solution of a complicated issue in a story. Most of the instances of a resolution are presented in the final parts or chapters of the story. It mostly follows the climax. So what is the resolution of the story? People say it is so simple, so elegant, so very Hemingway. The older waiter contemplates how life is meaningless with a prayer of nothingness, and goes to a bar to avoid being alone at home. He is trying to convince himself that the feeling of loneliness in his own life is just like insomnia. Then he reasons many must have it, which can mean many people in the world must suffer from vague sense of nothingness that plagues him.
The perceived theme in the short story is solitude, or in a wider sense, loneliness. The notion of being in isolation with oneself and secluding contact from what is to take away one's solitude. Now, the perceived loneliness may come in different aspects. Loneliness in general is the negative notion, while solitude is the positive and constructed state of connection with oneself. Solitude is something you desire, a state of being alone where you provide yourself wonderful and sufficient company. Now, in the story, it's about the old man and the old waiter appreciating the cafe because it was well lit, clean, and had an atmosphere or illusion of having company, where they feel a little less lonely. And also about the young waiter who had a wife waiting for him at home, then giving him the urge to go home instead of being there at the cafe. But the old waiter understood why the old man wanted to stay at the cafe. This is because he didn't want to go home, probably because the old man didn't have anything to look forward to going home. Thus, the old man is lonely or maybe desiring solitude but can't. Another perceived theme would be the meaning of having old age. In the story, the younger waiter was confident about life. It was because he was young, had a wife, and had a job, which made him confident. The older waiter then said to the younger waiter that they were two of different kinds, meaning that the older waiter knew what it meant to have that confidence because he was once young as well. Then the older waiter would say to the younger one that you have everything, and that very moment was everything. The younger waiter didn't understand what the older man was trying to put out. However, the older man was only making him realize that he was only confident because he was still young, not realizing how life would change as he grows older. Since change is the only constant thing in this world, and we just have to adapt to that change. Like in the story, life goes on. There will be a time when we'll feel lonely, and there will be a time that we will be old. All of us will be old, and then we'll be reminiscing on our life.